The cargo ship shuddered violently as another asteroid slammed into its hull. Inside the cockpit, Jack gripped his controls tighter, his knuckles white with effort. Warning lights flashed across his dashboard, painting the cramped space in alternating red and yellow glows. The ship wasn't going to make it. He knew that now. Mayday, mayday. This is cargo vessel Delta 7, requesting immediate assistance. He called into his radio for the third time. Static was his only answer. The asteroid field had come out of nowhere, defying all his navigation charts. Now his ship was damaged, and an unknown planet's gravity was pulling him in. Through the cockpit window, he watched as the planet grew larger. Its surface was a mix of deep purple oceans and dark green landmasses, with swirling clouds that seemed to move too fast. The ship's remaining sensors warned him about high magnetic activity in the atmosphere. That explained the radio silence. As Jack fought with the controls, trying to manage his descent, something caught his eye. Another ship, much smaller and sleeker than his bulky cargo vessel, was also falling toward the planet. Its design was unmistakably alien. All smooth curves and shimmering metal that seemed to change color in the light. It too appeared to be damaged, trailing sparks as it plunged through the atmosphere. "Great," Jack muttered. "Just what I needed. Company." The next few minutes were a blur of heat, noise, and desperate maneuvers. Jack's training kicked in as he fought to keep his ship from breaking apart. The cargo vessel screamed in protest as it hit the thick atmosphere, pieces of its outer hull tearing away. He aimed for what looked like a clearing in a forest of strange, twisted trees. The impact was brutal. Metal screeched against rock as the ship plowed into the ground, carving a deep trench through the alien soil. Jack's head slammed against his seat's padding, and his vision blurred. When the ship finally stopped moving, he sat there for a moment, just breathing, making sure he was still alive. A quick check showed that while the ship was a wreck, his cargo hold was intact. That meant he had supplies, if he could get to them. The cockpit door was jammed, but a few solid kicks fixed that problem. Jack grabbed his emergency pack and pulled out his handheld scanner. The air outside was breathable, barely, but filled with unusual particles he'd never seen before. As he climbed out of his ruined ship, he saw the alien vessel. It had crashed about half a kilometer away, smoke rising from its wreckage. Part of him wanted to just walk in the opposite direction, but something else, maybe curiosity, or maybe just basic decency, made him hesitate. That's when he saw it, a tall, slender figure emerging from the alien ship. Even from this distance, Jack could tell it wasn't human. Its skin seemed to shimmer with patterns of blue light, and its movements were too fluid, too graceful for any human frame. Both Jack and the alien froze when they spotted each other. The alien's hand moved to something at its hip, probably a weapon. Jack slowly reached for his own emergency laser, hoping he wouldn't need it. They might have stayed in that standoff forever if nature hadn't intervened. A drop of rain hit Jack's hand, and he heard a sharp, sizzling sound. Looking down, he saw the droplet had left a small red mark on his skin. More drops began to fall, and each one burned. Acid rain, he realized with horror. The alien seemed to have come to the same conclusion. It looked up at the darkening sky, then back at Jack. Neither of them had time to fight. They needed shelter, fast. Jack spotted a cave entrance in a nearby cliff face. Without thinking too hard about it, he pointed at the cave, then at the sky, making his intentions clear to the alien. The creature hesitated for a moment, then nodded, a surprisingly human gesture. They both ran for the cave as the acid rain began to fall in earnest. Jack's coat smoked where the droplets hit it, and he could hear the alien making strange hissing sounds of pain. They'd reached the cave at almost the same time, practically diving into its depths. As they stood there, catching their breath, and watching the deadly rain fall outside, Jack realized this was going to be either the beginning of an unlikely friendship or the prelude to a very short fight. He really hoped it would be the former. This planet seemed deadly enough without adding combat to the mix. The acid rain continued to pour outside the cave, creating small streams of sizzling liquid that flowed down the rocks. Jack sat on one side of the cave entrance, while the alien creature remained on the other. They had kept this careful distance for the past hour, each watching the other with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. The alien's blue patterns glowed softly in the dim light, creating strange shadows on the cave walls. Jack noticed it was checking some kind of device attached to its wrist, making clicking sounds that might have been words or expressions of frustration. Finally, the alien looked at Jack and pointed to its chest. "Blue," it said in a musical voice that echoed slightly. The word was clear despite its odd accent. Jack blinked in surprise. It, or rather they, could speak English. He touched his own chest. "Jack," he replied, keeping his voice calm and steady. Blue pulled out a small cylinder from their belt and held it up. The device was clearly broken, with sparks occasionally jumping between exposed wires. "Atmospheric processor," they said. "Damage. Air here. Difficult to breathe." Jack understood the problem. The alien needed the device to filter the planet's harsh atmosphere. Without it, they would slowly suffocate. He thought about his own situation and pulled out his water purifier from his emergency pack. The crash had cracked its main filter. "My water purifier is broken," Jack said, showing Blue the damaged device. "Can't clean the water here. Everything seems to be acidic on this planet." Blue studied the purifier with interest. After a moment, they pulled out some tools from a compartment in their suit. They pointed to Jack's purifier, then to their atmospheric processor, then made a gesture of joining them together. Jack understood. "You think you can fix one of them using parts from the other?" Blue nodded. "Together. Work together." They paused, seeming to choose their words carefully. "Or die together." The statement was blunt but true. Jack looked at the acid rain still falling outside. The planet's atmosphere was getting harder to breathe. He could feel it in his lungs. And without clean water, neither of them would last long. "Okay," Jack said, moving closer to Blue. "Let's see what we can do." They spread their broken devices on a flat rock between them. Blue's tools were strange but impressive. Some seemed to work by touch alone, while others created small force fields to hold tiny parts in place. Jack contributed his knowledge of basic Earth engineering, and together they began to work. As they worked, the planet's sun suddenly dropped below the horizon, plunging everything into darkness. The whole process had taken less than 4 Earth hours. Blue's patterns glowed brighter in the dark, providing some light to work by. "Short days here," Jack commented, pulling out his portable light. "That's going to make everything harder." Blue made a sound that might have been agreement. They were about to continue working when a deep growl echoed from somewhere in the darkness outside. Both Jack and Blue froze. In the beam of Jack's light, they saw movement. Multiple sets of eyes reflected the light back at them, and more growls followed. The planet's predators were nocturnal, and they had found the cave. Without speaking, Blue and Jack moved to opposite sides of the cave entrance. Jack pulled out his laser pistol, while Blue activated some kind of energy weapon that hummed with power. The creatures moved closer. They looked like a mix between earth wolves and lizards, with scales that reflected Blue's bioluminescence. The first creature lunged. Jack fired, his laser cutting through the darkness. Blue's weapon made a high-pitched sound, and one of the creatures fell. Together, they held off the pack until the animals finally retreated, leaving them alone in the darkness. Jack and Blue looked at each other, both breathing hard. Something had changed between them. They were no longer just two crashed survivors who happened to be in the same cave. They were partners. "We fix devices," Blue said, returning to their work. "Then we fix ships, together." Jack nodded, keeping his light trained on the cave entrance while Blue worked. "Together," he agreed. "But first, let's try to survive the night." Outside, another howl echoed across the alien landscape, reminding them that on this deadly planet, their differences meant far less than their need to cooperate. The morning came quickly on this strange planet, bringing with it new challenges and discoveries. Jack and Blue had spent the short night taking turns watching for predators while working on their equipment. Now, with the alien sun rising, they faced their next task, trying to fix their communication systems. "Your ship's radio," Blue said, pointing toward the wreckage of Jack's cargo vessel. "Maybe still works." Jack shook his head. "The magnetic field here killed it. But if we combine it with parts from your communication system, we might get something working." They walked together toward the crashed ships, staying alert for dangers. The acid rain had left burn marks everywhere, and the ground was still smoking in places. Blue moved with a natural grace that made Jack feel clumsy in comparison. Their glowing patterns shifted with each movement, creating beautiful waves of light. At Jack's ship, Blue stopped suddenly and made an odd chirping sound. Jack realized they were laughing. "What's so funny?" he asked. Blue pointed at the cargo ship's design. "Your ship's so blocky, like storage boxes with engines. Our ships flow like water." They gestured to their own crashed vessel, with its smooth, curved design. "Hey, it may not be pretty, but it gets the job done," Jack defended, then smiled. "Well, usually gets the job done." They gathered what they could from both ships' communication systems and returned to their cave. As they worked, Blue began teaching Jack about Meridian technology. Their devices used crystals that responded to touch and thought, working in ways that seemed like magic to Jack. Like this, Blue demonstrated, touching a crystal in a certain pattern. It glowed and hummed in response. Technology reads brain patterns, makes connection. Jack shared his own knowledge in return, explaining how human machines work through circuits and electricity. Blue seemed fascinated by the simplicity and reliability of human engineering. "Your ways, different," Blue said, "but smart, strong, like roots of trees." As they worked, the short day passed quickly. They had to pause several times to deal with the planet's dangers. Another acid rain shower, strange flying creatures that tried to steal their equipment, and plants that shot poisonous thorns when anyone got too close. During one of these breaks, Jack noticed Blue studying him intently. "Something wrong?" he asked. Trying to understand, Blue replied, "Why did we fear each other? My people say humans are dangerous, unpredictable. But you..." They paused, searching for words. "You are not what I expected." Jack thought about this. "We say similar things about your people, that you're mysterious, that we can't trust you. But you've saved my life twice now." Blue's patterns flickered in what Jack was learning to recognize as amusement. "3 times. You didn't see the crawler behind you earlier." "What crawler?" Jack asked, alarmed. "Exactly," Blue said, making that chirping laugh again. Their work on the communication system continued, but progress was slow. The planet's magnetic field kept interfering with their attempts to get a signal out. However, their repeated failures led to something unexpected. They began to understand each other better. Jack learned that Blue's pattern changes weren't just beautiful. They were a form of expression, like human facial expressions. Blue, in turn, began to understand human gestures and tone of voice. They developed a rhythm of working together, anticipating each other's needs and movements. As another short day came to an end, they finally managed to get a weak signal from their cobbled-together communication device. But instead of a rescue beacon, they picked up something else, a faint, repeating pattern that seemed to come from somewhere on the planet itself. "That's not a natural signal," Jack said, adjusting their receiver. Blue's patterns shifted to a deep, concerned purple. "No, too regular, too precise." They looked at Jack with their large, silvery eyes. "Someone built something here." "Or something," Jack added. "Question is, do we want to find out what it is?" Blue's patterns rippled with determination. "We must. Signal might be key to escape, or warning of greater danger." As darkness fell again and the nocturnal predators began their hunting calls, Jack and Blue prepared for another night, but now they had a new purpose, solving the mystery of their deadly new home together. Following the mysterious signal led Jack and Blue through a landscape that seemed designed to kill them. They had survived 3 more of the planet's short days, moving carefully between areas of shelter. The signal grew stronger as they approached a range of jagged mountains. "Look," Blue said, their patterns glowing brighter with excitement. They pointed to a dark opening in the mountain face ahead. Unlike the natural cave they'd been using for shelter, this entrance was perfectly square. Jack checked his scanner. The signal's coming from inside. He shone his light into the darkness, revealing smooth artificial walls. Someone built this. They moved cautiously into the tunnel. Blue's natural glow and Jack's light showed markings on the walls, symbols neither of them recognized. The air grew colder as they went deeper, and their footsteps echoed strangely. "This architecture," Blue said, touching one of the walls. "Not Meridian. Not human. How old do you think this place is?" Jack asked. Before Blue could answer, they entered a vast chamber that made them both stop in amazement. The room was filled with rows of ancient machines, covered in dust, but still humming with power. Holographic displays flickered weakly in the air, showing images of the planet's surface. "It's some kind of control room," Jack said, moving toward one of the displays. As he got closer, the image changed, showing a replay of their ships crashing. Blue's patterns turned a dark, worried blue. "Not accidents," they said. "Look." They pointed to another display that showed different ships, dozens of them, all crashing in similar ways over what seemed to be a long period of time. Each crash followed the same pattern: ships damaged by the asteroid field, then pulled down by the planet's gravity. "It's a trap," Jack realized. "This whole planet is one big trap." They explored further, finding more evidence that confirmed their fears. The planet had been artificially modified. The acid rain, the aggressive wildlife, the rapidly shifting day-night cycle, all of it had been engineered. In one corner of the chamber, they found what looked like a research station. Blue managed to activate an ancient data terminal, and streams of information appeared in the air. "This was weapons testing ground," Blue said, their voice filled with horror as they read the alien text. "They made perfect killing world. Testing ground for biological and environmental weapons." "But who are they?" Jack asked. "And where did they go?" Blue continued reading. "Says here, creators died. Their own weapon turned against them." They pointed to more text. "But defense systems still work, still catching ships, still collecting data." Jack felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air. That's why the asteroid field appeared out of nowhere. The planet's defenses created it to damage passing ships. "Yes," Blue agreed. "Planet draws ships in, tests weapons on survivors." Their patterns rippled with anger. "We are not first, but others did not survive." They found a map showing the planet's automated systems. The central control was deeper in the mountain, still active after who knew how many years. But what caught their attention was a flashing warning on one of the displays. "What's that?" Jack asked. Blue studied the symbols, their patterns shifting to a worried gray. "Planet's orbit, decaying, moving closer to sun." They looked at Jack with their silvery eyes. "We have maybe 20-day cycles before planet breaks apart. Can we shut it down?" Jack asked, gesturing to the defense systems. "Stop it from trapping more ships?" "Yes," Blue said, "but time we spend here is time not fixing ships." They paused. Choice: try to save future victims or save ourselves. Jack looked at the display showing all the crashes, all the lives lost to this deadly testing ground. Then he looked at their new friend, seeing the same determination in their glowing patterns that he felt. "We do both," he said firmly. "We shut this place down, then we get out of here." Blue's patterns brightened with approval. "Agreed. But first," they pointed to another tunnel leading deeper into the mountain. "We must find main control room." And Jack: "Yeah, be ready." If planet has more surprises, we find them soon. As they moved deeper into the ancient facility, both knew they were walking into danger. But they also knew they couldn't leave this deadly trap active, waiting for more unsuspecting victims. Whatever they found ahead, they would face it together. The journey back to their ships was tense but quick. Now that they knew the planet was falling apart, every second counted. Jack and Blue had spent precious time downloading all the data they could from the ancient facility, hoping it would help them escape. Ships both damaged, Blue said as they surveyed the wreckage. Their patterns glowed a thoughtful green. But together, maybe we make one good ship. Jack walked around his cargo vessel, assessing the damage. Your ship has better engines, but mine has more space and stronger hull plating. He pointed to the cargo hold. Plus, I've got spare parts in there. They began working immediately. Blue's ship, despite its damage, had advanced Meridian tools that made the work easier. Jack's cargo of machine parts provided the raw materials they needed, but the planet seemed determined to stop them. The first challenge came from the weather. The acid rain was getting worse as the planet moved closer to its sun. They had to build a makeshift shelter over their work area, using pieces of both ships' hulls. Like this, Blue demonstrated, using their energy tools to weld the metal sheets together. Human metal strong. Good protection. Jack watched in amazement as Blue's tools seemed to mold the metal like clay. Your technology is incredible, he said. On Earth, this would take hours. Blue's patterns flickered with what Jack now recognized as pride. Meridian science hold. Very advanced. But they gestured to Jack's cargo ship. Human engineering simple. Reliable. We learn from each other. They worked through several short day cycles, combining the best parts of both ships. Jack's knowledge of basic mechanics complemented Blue's advanced technical skills. They decided to use Jack's cargo hold as the main body, but integrate Blue's more sophisticated navigation and propulsion systems. During one of their breaks, while sheltering from another acid storm, Blue studied their downloaded data. Planet's defense systems still active. Will try to stop us leaving. Can we use what we learned to get past them? Jack asked. Blue's patterns shifted to a determined purple. Yes, but risky. Need perfect timing. They showed Jack a holographic display from their wrist device. Defense system creates asteroid fields using gravity weapons. If we time launch right, use gravity wave to boost speed. We could ride it out instead of fighting it. Jack finished, understanding the plan. Like surfing a wave. Surfing? Blue asked, their head tilted in confusion. Jack smiled. I'll explain if we survive this. Their work was interrupted again when the ground began to shake. The planet's deteriorating orbit was causing earthquakes now. Parts they had carefully aligned would shift out of place, forcing them to start over. Time running out. Blue said, their patterns showing stress with rapid red pulses. Need to work faster. They pushed themselves harder, taking more risks. During one particularly bad earthquake, Jack slipped while working on the hull. Blue caught him just before he fell into a puddle of acid rain that had collected below. Careful, Blue said, their grip surprisingly strong. Still need you. Thanks, Jack replied. I guess that makes us even now. Blue made their chirping laugh. No, still owe you one. Remember the crawler. They worked through another night cycle, using Blue's bioluminescence and Jack's portable lights. The predators seemed more aggressive now, perhaps sensing the planet's approaching doom. Twice they had to stop working to fight off attacks. Finally, after what felt like endless hours of work, their hybrid ship was ready. It looked strange. A blocky human cargo vessel with sleek Meridian engines and technology grafted onto it. The inside was equally mixed, with human control panels next to Meridian crystal interfaces. Will it fly? Jack asked, looking at their creation. Blue's pattern swirled with a mix of colors Jack hadn't seen before. Will fly. Question is, will fly well enough? They both knew what Blue meant. Their ship had to be perfect. The slightest flaw would mean death when they tried to escape through the planet's defenses, and they only had one chance. "We test tomorrow," Jack said, looking at the acidic clouds gathering above. "As soon as we have enough light." Blue nodded, their pattern settling into a calm blue. "Then we fly, or we die." They turned to Jack. "No regrets. Good to work with human." "Good to work with you too, Blue," Jack replied, really meaning it. "Now let's get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be interesting." As they took shelter for their last night on the deadly planet, both knew that their unlikely partnership had created something unique, a ship that represented the best of both their species. Whether it would be enough to save them remained to be seen. The massive storm came without warning. Dark clouds rolled in just as Jack and Blue were preparing for their final test flight. Lightning crackled with unnatural colors, purple, green, and red, while acid rain poured down harder than they'd ever seen. "Storm not normal," Blue shouted over the howling wind. Their patterns flickered rapidly with alarm. Planet's defense systems activated. Jack looked at their hybrid ship, now being pelted by acid rain. "We need to get it under cover. The hull won't last long in this." They rushed to move their makeshift shelters panels, fighting against wind that tried to tear the metal from their hands. Blue's patterns suddenly flashed bright white, their warning color. "Jack, behind you." Jack turned to see one of the largest predators they'd encountered yet. It was twice the size of the others, with scales that seemed to reflect the lightning's strange colors. The creature had used the storm as cover to sneak up on them. Blue raised their energy weapon, but the storm was interfering with it. The weapon sparked and died. The creature lunged forward, its claws extended toward Jack. Without hesitation, Blue threw themselves between Jack and the predator. The creature's claws raked across Blue's side, leaving deep gashes that glowed with their bioluminescent blood. Jack fired his laser pistol, driving the creature back. More predators appeared in the storm, their eyes glowing in the darkness. Jack grabbed Blue and helped them toward the ship. Inside. Now. They made it inside just as the predators attacked en masse, clawing at the hull. Blue collapsed against the wall, their patterns dimming dangerously. "How bad is it?" Jack asked, examining Blue's wounds. "Bad," Blue admitted. "Need medical supplies. Our supplies gone in storm." Jack remembered something from the facility's map. There was a medical bay in those ruins. The same people who built this place must have needed to treat injuries from their experiments. Blue's patterns flickered weakly. "Too dangerous. Storm. Predators. You saved my life," Jack said firmly. "I'm not letting you die here." He made sure Blue was secure in the ship, then prepared to head out. Blue caught his arm with a trembling hand. "Wait," they said. "Take this." They pressed their wrist device into Jack's hand. "Has map. And emergency beacon. If trouble." Jack nodded, strapping the device to his own wrist. The alien technology felt warm against his skin. The journey to the ruins was a nightmare. The storm had grown even worse, and the acid rain burned through his protective clothing. The predators were everywhere, hunting in the artificial darkness. Jack had to use every trick he'd learned over the past days to avoid them. Inside the ruins, he found the medical bay exactly where the map showed it. Ancient cabinets lined the walls, filled with strange devices and containers. But which ones would help Blue? Their biology was completely different from human. Then he noticed something. The symbols on some containers matched the patterns Blue's skin made when they were healthy. Of course, the aliens who built this place would have coated their medical supplies with bioluminescent markers. Jack grabbed everything that matched Blue's normal patterns, but as he turned to leave, a massive tremor shook the facility. Parts of the ceiling began to cave in. The tremor had also activated something in the ruins. Screens lit up all around him, showing the planet's deteriorating orbit. A computerized voice began speaking in an unknown language. Jack looked at the screens, then at Blue's wrist device. The planet's defense systems were fully activating. They were out of time. He ran back through the storm, clutching the medical supplies. The predators chased him, but now they seemed to be running from something too. The ground was breaking apart behind them. When he reached the ship, he found Blue barely conscious, their patterns almost dark. Working quickly, he applied the medical supplies, praying he'd chosen correctly. To his relief, Blue's patterns began to brighten. Their eyes opened. "You came back," they said weakly. "Of course I did," Jack replied. "But we got bigger problems. The planet's defense systems are fully online, and this place is falling apart right now." Blue struggled to sit up. "How long?" "Minutes, maybe. We need to launch now, ready or not." But final checks, not complete. Jack helped Blue into their control seat. "No choice. We fly or we die, remember." Blue's pattern steadied, showing their familiar determination. "Then we fly." As they powered up their hybrid ship, the ground continued to break apart around them. They had one chance to escape, and they needed to take it now. Their hybrid ship shuddered as Jack and Blue fired up its engines. The ground beneath them was cracking apart, releasing jets of toxic gas. The storm raged overhead, and the planet's defense systems were fully active. "Engines at full power," Blue reported, their patterns now glowing steadily after the medical treatment. Their hands danced over the crystal controls. "Meridian systems ready. Human systems online," Jack confirmed, gripping the familiar cargo ship controls. "Let's see if our crazy idea works." They lifted off just as the ground where they'd been parked collapsed into a deep chasm. The ship handled strangely, human bulk with meridian grace. It felt like trying to make an elephant dance, but somehow it worked. As they climbed through the atmosphere, their sensors detected the defense system activating. The artificial asteroid field began to form ahead of them. "Ready for the crazy part?" Jack asked. Blue's patterns flickered with what Jack now recognized as excitement. "Ready. Calculating gravity wave now." They'd studied the defense system's patterns. Instead of trying to avoid the artificial asteroids, they planned to use the gravity wave that created them to boost their speed. It was like surfing a wave of space-time itself. "Wave approaching," Blue announced. 3, 2, 1. Jack pushed their ship directly into the gravity wave. For a moment, everything went wrong. Metal screamed, crystal controls flickered, and both Jack and Blue were pressed hard into their seats. Then suddenly, they were moving faster than either of their original ships could have managed alone. The asteroid field became a blur around them. "It's working," Jack shouted. But the planet wasn't done with them yet. A massive energy beam shot up from the surface, aiming to pull them back down. Switching to emergency power, Blue said, their patterns intense with concentration, redirecting all energy to Meridian engines. Jack nodded. "Activating cargo ship's emergency thrusters. Let's give it everything." Their hybrid ship, this impossible combination of human and Meridian technology, fought against the planet's pull. For several terrifying seconds, they hung suspended between escape and disaster. Then, with a final surge of power, they broke free. The planet's grasp slipped away, and they shot into open space. Behind them, through their rear viewers, they watched as the deadly planet began to break apart. The weapons testing ground that had claimed so many lives was finally destroying itself. "We did it," Jack said quietly. "We actually did it." Blue's patterns rippled with joy. "Yes, human engineering, Meridian technology. Together, we made impossible possible." As they set course for the nearest space station, they received their first clear communication signal. It was from a joint human Meridian patrol ship. "This is Patrol Ship Unity," a voice called. "We've detected your unusual vessel. Please identify yourselves." Jack and Blue looked at each other, then Jack answered. "This is Jack from Earth Cargo Delta 7 and Blue from Meridian Scout Ship Luminous. You're not going to believe our story." Hours later, aboard the patrol ship, they told their tale. The patrol commanders, both human and Meridian, listened with growing amazement. Your experience, the Meridian commander said, their patterns showing deep thought, proves what some of us have long believed. Our species are stronger together than apart. The human commander nodded. The data you recovered from that facility is invaluable. And your hybrid ship, our engineers will want to study it carefully. What happens now? Jack asked. Blue stepped forward, their patterns forming the complex swirls that indicated a formal proposal. I request Jack become official human Meridian technology consultant. His understanding of both our ways, unique. The commanders looked at each other, then agreed. It would be the first such position ever created. And you, Blue? The Meridian commander asked. I stay as partner, Blue said simply. We work well together. Why change? Jack smiled. Partners it is. Later, as they watched their hybrid ship being carefully docked for study, Blue's patterns showed a question. Jack, what is surfing? Jack laughed. Tell you what, next time we're near Earth, I'll show you. Though after riding a gravity wave, regular surfing might seem boring. Blue made their familiar chirping laugh. With you, friend Jack, nothing boring. As they stood together, watching human and Meridian engineers excitedly examining their ship, they knew they'd done more than just escape a deadly planet. They'd proven that fear of differences could be overcome, that cooperation was stronger than suspicion, and that sometimes the best solutions came from combining the unlikely. The deadly planet was gone, but its final legacy wasn't death. It was hope for a future where humans and Meridians worked together, facing whatever challenges the universe held in store.